All right. Well, hey, thanks for showing up. We've got a small gang tonight, so I am looking forward to the tenacity from each. We're going to kick off with a review of what Phil led us through last week, but much more quickly dive into the scenarios since it is just a review. And we'll do some scenarios, some thought experiments, some brainstorming, and then we'll get out of here. Sound good? Alrighty. Okay, so dealing with Dissent, finding a win-win. Each of these games often has a moment of truth. You don't always know when you caught it, but you pretty much always know when you missed it. It's there's some injustice, some perceived injustice that occurs that goes potentially unpunished. Maybe the referee had a lack of awareness about something that the players react too strongly. And it could just be a simple error. Could have been a long day refereeing already, out in the heat for 5 days in a row, like we will be come Sunday. And then just lack of knowledge. So keep in mind the moment of truth. What kind of things are giving players emotional reactions? Give me a reminder here from last week.
A missed call.
Yes.
Or a bad call.
Amen. Sometimes
missed shots.
It's like you guys have seen this before. You're hitting them in order. It's beautiful.
Uncooperative play amongst the teammates.
Oh my goodness. And then outside of the team, we have
coaches and spectators.
okay, and opponents. Yes, coaches and spectators can influence things, certainly. So we have to learn how to manage. I like this last one Phil put in there. Nothing in particular. Sometimes it's just beyond our scope. But referees have to learn to manage players in these potentially explosive emotional situations. Sometimes we get there, we miss the opportunity, whatever it may be. And so what kind of win-win are we looking for in this situation for the referee? What does a win-win look like here?
So the emotions calm down, and we get compliance. And I want to use compliance as like in an authoritative way, but the game continues. Attitudes can change, and the player feels like they have input at some kind of value in the decision process.
There you go. And that leads us into the second portion, and I'll lean on Robert to answer this one. What's the win-win look like for the player, the coach, the spectator?
I think like the match continues in a more positive manner also. And the coach feels like they were heard. That's a couple of them I remember.
Exactly. I was heard. That matters a lot to them. That doesn't always mean they get their way. Just that they feel heard. So when there is that moment of truth, it's often heated. And we have this system for helping us stay calm in the face of dissent. I'm going to go round robin here. We'll start with Cindy. Do you recall the C?
Wow.
Maybe cool down,
Cool down?
cool things down. I don't know. Composure. Okay.
Composure.
Yeah, you're cool and composed.
Yes, it's about being confident, watching body language, maintaining your cool.
There's my cool.
Who wants the A?
Approachable.
There we go. Be approachable. Hear them. That doesn't mean you have to bend to their will, but you can hear them. be respectful and listen. All right, we've got an L coming up.
List.
Did you say list?
I said, listen.
Oh, listen. That is one. What we've got here is language. So the referee's language is critical here. The referee wants to be using appropriate language, be very clear, also respectful, and don't threaten. Threats don't cultivate respect, then you paint yourself into a corner. Because if you don't meet up to your threat, then you're weak. And then the most important one in the end is manage proactively. If you keep these things small and they don't get big, everybody stays calm and you don't have to restore calm. All right. We got a few more things here and then we're going to get into the scenarios. So we have anger management. So there's confronting it. It must be confronted positively. That's part of proactive management. If it's not confronted positively, anger will surface later, which comes hand in hand with negativity, and that can affect the game. It can be very tough for the referee to, they might have lost control. They might just start throwing cards left and right because that's the only tool they have left, they feel they have left to use. Nothing else is working, so might as well try that. And facing it head on can allow the player to move on instead of festering with the frustration there. So that leads us to a 5-step hard stop. Does anyone recall step number 1? It is.
Oh, ask.
No,
Hey, there we go. Yeah. Ask. And an important part of helping them understand why you're asking something is
They feel part of the solution.
yeah, you can explain it to them, and then to make them feel part of the solution, you present the options. And then you confirm with them, you put it in their hands. Is there anything I can say to get you to accept that we're going to make the calls we're going to make? To accept that this is the proper way to call throw-ins and this is what we're doing. And then, of course, from there, we need to, step 5 is take action. All right, we got to take action. All this planning, but in the end, action is key. Okay, everyone's brains are turned, fresh, ready to jump right back in. I'm gonna scoot us ahead to scenario 5 here. Actually,
6.
yes, we did 5 last week. Scenario 6, we have 10, so we got through the first half. You know, what's not fair is there's a 1 and a 1A. So actually, we have 11. Alrighty, so diving into scenario 6, 2 opposing players get tangled up while trying to play the ball. No fouls were observed, but both players fall to the ground and are very angry when they get up and go toe-to-toe. Play has moved elsewhere, but the referee feels this is an explosive situation. How are we going to handle this?
Blow the whistle.
Blow the whistle. Now, it says no fouls were observed. So for what reason are we blowing the whistle?
It's an explosive situation and we need to be proactive.
Tell me more.
Well, by stopping play and focusing your attention on these 2 players, you can help them to resolve the tension and reduce the tension so that it doesn't explode.
Okay. What kind of things are you doing once you've blown the whistle?
talking to them, find out what's going on, what the problem is. Try to talk them through it, and then try to get them to, shake hands or just, be sporting like to each other and accept, whatever they did to each other, make sure they're able to move on from it.
Okay. And then what comes next?
Restart the game. If necessary, a drop ball. If you're lucky, you were able to have the ball go out of play. I would look for the opportunity. If there's no opportunity, there's no imminent attack, I would go ahead and blow that whistle and deal with it, and then restart with a drop ball.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody else have any different approaches, any questions, any input?
I'd say sometimes like your positioning between the players, and then kind of creating a little, if they're toe to toe, that they're, probably pretty heated with each other. So just creating a little bit of distance between the players themselves, and maybe a little bit of distance along. I think that could be something, not that I want to get in the middle of a fist fight, but we are there for the safety of the game. And so creating that distance, if it continues to escalate, maybe you do have to send them off to their prospective sidelines and have a discussion with the coaches. If it just calms down and gets on, and like Cindy said, that get them to do a handshake or agree to disagree, however it is, that maybe they just both feel that they, both of them fouled each other, and you just kind of move on from there and say, all right, guys, let's go. Remember why we're here. We're here to play a game and win. You're not going to win the game if you're not in the game. So that works too.
Yeah. So if you see them sizing each other up, getting each other's faces, you want to settle that down quickly.
And I'd like to add to my answer, before I blow the whistle, I'm speeding to that location
Okay.
as fast as I can go,
Mm-hmm.
to have my presence handle things.
Mm-hmm. And we can use our voice and or our whistle before we even get there, right?
Oh, yeah.
One thing that's taught in the national course is so David, you mentioned that you didn't want to get in the middle of a fist fight, which I will fully back. But we teach, if you get in there with your whistle, you don't have to put yourself in between, but you just get on that whistle and blow it and blow it and blow it. It can be quite disruptive. And you don't have to. We don't want you to put yourself in that dangerous situation. So I'm glad that you were keyed in on that. Yeah. Okay. I think we've identified some of the key points. Let our presence be known. Make sure we can reach an agreement, if not between the players, as Cindy mentioned. Then David mentioned having a talk with the coaches, getting the players to their separate sides and cooling them off in that way. Okay. We'll jump on to scenario number 7 here. All right. Substitutions at the quarters are in force in a 19U match. A player is losing control and must be cautioned. The coach wants to substitute the player to calm him down. So, to be clear, the player has not been cautioned yet. And the coach is, and this is not at the quarters. Okay. So, in a 90-minute game, we're 52 minutes in. Number 4 on blue did something, needs a caution. Coach says, "Hey, can I sit her out? Can I sit him out?" Yeah. How are we going to handle this situation? Sorry, can I substitute him out?
How much are we supposed to hold to this? It has to be at the quarter mark.
That's a good question. So you're asking yourself, is it,
Is it okay to honor the request?
yeah, what
in
do we
its
think?
desire to help, yeah, this player calm down?
I mean, he could be suffering, you know, an emotional injury. Needs to calm down.
Well, and we are giving the caution, right? It says the player must be cautioned.
Caution.
Yeah, this is,
They are going to get the caution.
okay. Do we all agree that they will receive the caution?
Well, I mean,
It says it in the
it must be
scenario.
cautioned, so I didn't know. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Some people might question whether the coach's input would change that, but I hear that we're all standing by our decision on the cautionable offense. Okay.
I think I would add one thing. When I talk to the coach, I would present him with options. I would say certainly if he needs to come out to talk and you want to substitute, we can allow that. However, if you'd just like to play short for a few minutes while he calms down, then you can let me know and I can motion him back on. It's your choice. That's what I would say to the coach. Because often the coach doesn't know that they have options, doesn't even know that they can really substitute. They're just asking for help.
Hmm.
And it's nice in the situation that the coach wants to help.
Yes, bring them
But
in.
they recognize that there is a problem here.
Hmm.
And the coach knows their players. They know what that player is about to do. And they want to prevent it.
Very true.
So we're saying it is allowable to be flexible in this case, even though the general rule is that we have substitutions at the quarters. That's what I'm hearing, right? And that seems really good to me. Unless the tournament police are out there and
Well, I'd go to argue that the substitutions of the quarter are normal substitutions. Anytime you do a substitution for an injury or special circumstance, that's still allowed. I mean, could be wrong, but I would assume that.
Hmm.
I mean, it would be no different than if someone tore their knee up and it wasn't, 2 minutes into the game. We're going to have them play short the whole time and wait for the quarter, or we're going to allow a substitution. It'd be a very similar situation.
Yeah. So would our answer change at all if this were the weakest player on the team and coach says, hey, I had to put them, coach doesn't say I had to put them in. Coach says, hey, can I substitute him out? Everything else is the same. Just now I'm pointing out that it's the weakest player on the team.
Not having done a 19U match, but I can't imagine that there's the difference between the weakest player and the middle strong player is going to be that great of a difference. It's not like a 12U or 10U team where you got somebody picking daisies and somebody that can dribble the ball up and down the field in around circles. The skill level of the players are probably closer that as the older they get. I don't know if that would play a big factor in that decision or not.
Being being a 19U coach frequently, I can tell you the gap gets bigger as they get older. And being AOSO, if you have a 19U team, you have some players who've never played soccer before, and everyone plays. Guarantee it. And when they start at 19U, you can have some big disparities because they're
Oh,
bigger
really?
and stronger too.
Yeah.
And
So to talk to your point, Lewis, about
mhm,
if it was this weakest player, I think I mean, first off, I that is a consideration I think we want to think about in the situation. But also, though, if the facts haven't changed that this player is losing control, whether they're weak or medium or the best, I mean, if they're losing control, they are going to be a danger possibly to another player.
okay.
And so it almost, depending on the degree of losing control, it could matter. And even if they're the weakest player, yeah, this person needs a timeout.
All
If
right.
if they're really out of control. If it's just a little thing that we can say a couple of words to the player maybe, and ask them, what's going on, or I don't know how we would say it. Probably you and Cindy, you've had more experience with how to talk to a player like this. I mean, maybe you have an idea how you would kind of just, if you think you could make a difference and calm a player like this down, it wasn't too out of control. Could you offer something you might have said in the past that might have worked or something like that?
Did you ask that question to Cindy?
Either one of you,
Oh, okay.
if you've had an experience with this, what that actually you were able to resolve it.
You know, I've only witnessed the coach take this initiative once, which was actually earlier this year. And um, he actually just called the girl over to the touchline and spoke with her. I had actually called a foul on her, and I think I'd called a foul for her. She had been fouled and she was mouthing off. And before I could even react, the coach called her over to the touchline, and he didn't want to sit her out. And so I made sure when the coach was done with her, I went and thanked him, and that was it. The coach was pretty effective. I think for me, so Cindy mentioned giving options, which is great. So there's another option. The coach can just talk to the player, tell the player to stand right next to them. The coach can have the player stand off the field with them, ask for permission to leave the field, and we're going to give permission in this situation, even if they're not formal about it. We want to give permission for this coach to try to create a positive influence. Um, and then maybe say, hey, let's see how a few minutes go, and then decide if we need the substitution. And then um, usually the player might cool down by then. Yeah.
And I think once the player realizes the coach knows that they need to calm them down, the player probably didn't recognize how angry they were and what they were about to explode. So I think it's very good that the coach could have a calming influence on the player, and the player would be accepting of that because they usually consider the coach to be someone who's fair and someone who's on their side.
Mm-hmm. It's a good point. There aren't too many coaches that'll do this, unfortunately. This is like a national coach move, right? There aren't too many national referees. There aren't too many national coaches. So we talked about giving options. We talked about the consideration of whether this is a fair substitution. We talked about considering the hypothetical where this might be the weakest player on the field. Yeah.
Yeah, when you said the weakest player in the field, you're like trying to address the idea of gamesmanship, right? Like kind of taking them out so they have a better chance with whoever they're substituting them for.
Or the other team, right? Maybe it's a close game. The other team's like, hey, we
Right.
have to put in our weakest player. How are they allowed to sit that person out? Yeah, that is something I've seen. The kid genuinely got injured, physical injury. And the other team complained that a substitution was allowed, and it's
A nightmare.
it's not very sporting. It's sad to see. Yeah, but they key in on that. They definitely key in on that. All right, yeah. So we're thinking of gamesmanship. That's great. Um, let's take a look at this next one. After the completion of a match, the losing team is complaining bitterly about the officiating. The captain approaches the officials and asks for an explanation of several calls. Several of her teammates are standing nearby waiting to hear the answers. The atmosphere is suspicious and volatile. Has anyone experienced this?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David too.
Mainly from the parents, not so much the players, but yeah.
Yeah, when
I-
you do the older games, it's the players who do it, not the parents. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how do we handle this?
One, I don't think it's appropriate to get confrontational with them. You just can kindly say, well, my decisions were my decisions, and just kind of walk away and don't make yourself a target. And you can explain that, I understand your frustration in losing the game, but the game is over, and it's time to move on. And these were, I called the game the way I saw it, and there doesn't need to be an explanation. If you need an explanation of what the rules are, I suggest whatever, either take a class or read the rule book. However you want to explain it. I know it's kind of hard in the heat of the moment, when somebody's trying to get angry, but you got to maintain your composure.
Okay. Yeah.
And then hopefully the other your ARs, or if it's an AR, the CR and the other ARs are coming to assist and kind of walk off the field together. And it's not really I guess kind of like a show of force, but not really a show of force, but more of a show of solidarity that, we're one team, we agree, and we're, we're moving on to the next game. I think I know you were there for one of those that it was actually a grandmother who just got irate. I want to say Bert was a CR on that one. And somebody just pulled out a cell phone and I don't even know if they were recording it, pulled out a cell phone and kind of just picked it up and been like, and that seemed to kind of, maybe no one wants to look like a fool on social media. So, whether you're recording or not, it's you're giving the at least the look of you're recording it, and and then we can talk about it later, right?
Hmm.
Tournament play, you can have them ejected from the field, but to get confrontational and that kind of stuff right there, it isn't the right answer.
I have a technique that I use when this happens. What I say is, hey, I'm finishing up my duties here. I've got to work with my referee team here, and we've got to, supervise a handshake and everything. But when we're all done with our duties, my bag's over there near that corner, and I'll be there. You come on over, and I can explain anything you still have questions about. And I have never had anybody take me up on that. But they got, I didn't say no. I said, sure, I'd be glad to when I have time. I say, one time that just this past Strawberry Cup, I was doing 10U match because I had hurt my knee, and the coach wanted to talk to me about a situation where I had stopped the game and I had talked to the player, and he kind of met me as I was going off the field. He wasn't angry at all, and it turned out all he wanted was to know exactly what the player had done, because he wanted to tell that player not to behave that way anymore, and he wanted to make sure he knew exactly what to say to the player. So this says it's looks suspicious, but sometimes they honestly just want information.
Mhm. This is true. This is true. And that's something that, yeah, it was hard to convey in a scenario. You can read that out in person. And some people have the personality, the refereeing skills to be able to switch this to something that maybe it was volatile. And then if they're actually curious about the information, you know, they can switch the focus to be about the information. A combination of David mentioning getting the ref team together, getting numbers, solidarity, Cindy mentioning going to the bag. Another very common one is say, hey, I gotta go finish things up at the referee tent, but feel free to come over. And you'll almost never get taken up on that, but you did offer them the option. And they say, but you know, right here, real quick. Look, I hear you. I've got to head over there to finish things up. Some other kids have a game coming, and I might need to referee that. And then, aside from giving them the option and not turning them down, you did create the opportunity for them to learn if they want. And you got yourself out of a suspicious, volatile situation. Robert, do you have anything to add? Oh, you were unmuted and now you are muted.
You guys pretty much covered it fairly well, but it made me think of another situation that I had, but we don't have to talk about it now. We could, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let me just say a couple more things about this one, and then we'll touch on that because we're doing great on time. David, you'd mentioned the handshake. So whether this happens before or after the handshake, kind of it shapes your ability to get out of there, huh? One of the things about if this happens before the handshake, you can redirect their focus. You know, we got to do the handshake right now. And then at the end of the handshake, the coaches are at the middle and you hang on to the coach. And you shake the coach's hand. You say, hey, coach, wait here with me for a minute. And then if the players do come to talk, they've got their coach right there. And of course, if it's after the handshake, then you have the option of just getting out of there. I mean, anyone who's refereed with me knows how quickly I get off the field and I get my referee shirt off. I do not make myself an easy target. That's my personal approach to this. I get out of there fast. If you try to fill out the cards, I'm leaving you behind. Another option is just if this seems really bad, just make sure you're not the slowest referee there.
Like a bear attack.
Yeah. Has anyone heard those horror stories where referees like, yeah, you know, I knew about this game, so I kept my key, I kept my bag in the car, I kept my key in my pocket, and I backed into my parking spot so I could get out of there fast. Has anyone ever heard those horror stories?
I can imagine.
For me, I wonder why I would even be going to do that game if I felt that were necessary. So we talked about the redirect. No one mentioned really just shutting them down. We talked about the redirects. We talked about getting numbers. We talked about giving them time to cool off. So those are all great approaches. Yeah, Robert, let's go with your situation.
Yeah, so you know, obviously there's a reason why to get the national badge, you need not only to be assessed, but to have a minimum amount of games you've refereed. And because you're getting more experience. So I've been reffing these games on Sundays at Newbury Park High School where they're adults, and they are very competitive adults. It's not like the Friday night at Camarillo, the cool 4 teams that are just mellow. These people are competitive. They push every limit. You wouldn't believe what I've seen. Just delaying and different things that they try to make sure what how to call the game. So anyway, I had one of these games, the worst ever game the most challenging game I've ever refereed yesterday. And these guys were like just cheating, I would say, all over the place, trying to, I can't even give you examples. But anyway, at the end of the first half, one of these guys got fouled just outside of the box, outside of the penalty area on the right side. And of course, I waited to see if, I waited to see if something developed, maybe they would, even though they got fouled, maybe they would still kick it in. They were very close to the goal. And because I didn't call the foul right away, the guy that fouled got really mad, and I'm like, after like a couple seconds, I did blow the whistle. And then the other team got mad, thinking that I blew it just because that guy got angry. And I had to explain, no, I was watching to see what was going to develop. I don't just call a foul right away. So a lot of times I watch to see what's going to happen. So it calmed things down, but they were still a little, the guy who got fouled was still a little pissed off, so that was the end. But it was a 1-1 game. Well, it was a 1-0 game for the other team. And then second half started and this team scored a goal. So it was 1-1. And maybe halfway through the second half, there's only like 25-minute halves. And these fields are like 40 feet wide, and maybe whatever the width of a football field is, that's their length of this football field, of the soccer field. I don't know what that is, 50 yards or 60 yards. I don't know what a football field at Newbury Park is, how wide it is, but we were using it as the length, the touch line. So I don't know why, but I chose a bad time to do something I don't usually do, and it caused me a lot of grief. This very volatile team was in the penalty area, and they don't have goal areas and penalty areas. It's just one area. But the guy was in the penalty area, totally got fouled. And instead of waiting, I almost simultaneously blew the whistle, and almost simultaneously after that, the guy scored a goal. Just a nightmare. Because of course the other team said, oh, you can't allow that now, can you? You blew the whistle, you can't allow that. And so, look, I'm going to be wrong no matter what I decide, but I chose to, I literally wasn't sure. I mean, I think I was just before the goal went in. The guy had already kicked it, and so I allowed the goal. Of course, that pissed off that team. And then if I wouldn't have allowed, now I know at the time I could have changed my decision and I could have granted a penalty kick. And then that would have pissed off the hell of the other team. And, and I know we can't be totally worried about what everybody thinks, and we want to do the right thing, but I'm just saying it was a tough situation. I did something I don't normally do. I usually delay. I think there's just something about that. It was so close. It was right in the penalty area. That's what made the difference for me, where I made the error, the unforced error. And so I could have given the penalty. They still would have had maybe a, I don't know, 75% chance of making it, at least. And maybe if I did it over again, well, first, if I did it over again, I would wait, like I usually always do. But I just wondered if you guys would have had the courage to pull it back and give the penalty and say, you know what? I was wrong. I blew I did blow the whistle just instantaneously before it went in the goal. Penalty kick. Please talk to this one.
What are the 3 C's that we say we need to see in a national referee?
I don't know.
Courage,
Courage.
Character and consistency.
Mhm.
So in the first half, they taught you to be quick with your whistle. In the second half, they taught you to wait with your whistle. uh,
Robert, I would offer you one thing. So in the first half, when they got upset about the delayed whistle, what I found that really helps a lot when you have players who know what's going on, the older players, adult players. If I have a delayed whistle when I've been looking for an advantage, I will say that loudly so that everybody can hear. No advantage developed, going to the original foul. That
Okay,
way, I don't feel like people perceive me as being influenced by anybody,
right.
and I'm making clear what was going on when I made my decision. And I
Thank you.
found that's very helpful.
Thank you.
yeah, and you can flip things and say, hey, look, I was looking for the advantage because I know how skilled that guy is. And then boom, it turns into a compliment. Like, hey, no, every other time he's been able to get up and make something happen. This time he didn't. I was believing in him and he didn't believe in himself that time. Yeah.
So luckily this game, at the very last play of the game, the team that was down 2-1 that had that scored on them, the guy headed it in for a goal. The very last, I was about to blow the whistle, he headed it in for a goal. And the other team was totally like just kicking the ball back, playing keep away. One of their players of the other team that was down, players had quit, said, "Oh, we're done." With 4 minutes.
So it sounds like this was the moment of truth that we'd been talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought of when you mentioned that at the beginning of our session today. It's like,
Okay.
that's but
Good.
it reinforced that how important it is to swallow that whistle, like just for just a sec, or two.
And there are moments for both.
Mhm.
There are undeniably moments for both. So with that, I want to move on to scenario 9, which gets us closer to scenario 10, which gets us closer to wrapping up. So we'll launch into this one. In the final quarter of a 16U match, both teams and the referee are tiring. In an attempt to create a goal scoring opportunity, one coach moves all of his defenders up to the opponent's penalty area. Excitedly, an attacking fullback kicks wildly at the ball and narrowly misses the opposing goalkeeper's face. In split-second reaction time, a defender swings at the offender without hesitating. The attacker retaliates, shoving the opponent into the nearby referee. Referee and players sprawl to the ground as players from both teams rush forward. All right. How are we handling this one? Go ahead.
Well, hopefully you've addressed this in your pregame with your assistant referees, so that the AR closest to this situation is going to be, rushing to assist and perhaps, holding off players from rushing in. I would, a complication is the referee is sprawled on the ground. If I'm not incapacitated, I'm getting up as quickly as possible and blowing my whistle over and over again, very hard, and trying to separate these two players that have swung at each other. That's the first part of this. That's just all I want to say for now.
Mm-hmm.
See what other people have to say. There's obviously red cards involved, send-offs for the two people who had violent conduct, in my view.
All right. All right.
And I concur with jumping up and blowing the whistle as hard as you can. And again, goes back to the previous, scenario 7 or 6, where you don't want to get involved in the middle of the fist fight, but you need to be off to the side, clearing that out. Hopefully the coaches aren't going at it too, like a like a baseball bench clearing thing where, you know, it's almost impossible to get everybody cleared out of there. And you're in the final quarter of the game, you know, action like this may even constitute terminating the game early. You know, tell you, it's,
Okay.
yeah. Because by the time you get this all situated, time's probably going to expire.
Yeah.
This isn't gonna. This isn't gonna. This isn't gonna end in 30 seconds of you go to each. You know, you go here, you go here. We have multiple people. We have people who, and then players from both teams rush forward. I mean, did anybody? I mean, that almost sounds like a bench clearance. So now you have unauthorized players entering the field of play. You have all kinds of scenarios that can develop from that.
Yeah. Well, I like that you both went for the whistle right away. Get up and get the whistle going. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever fallen while refereeing. Have you ever lost your whistle?
Oh, no.
There's this great clip where something like this happens, and we love showing it. The referee loses his whistle. After he's done with his 5 red cards or so, he asks the AR for a whistle. Do you carry a spare whistle with you?
In the pocket, in the right pocket.
Yeah, if you don't, a situation like this will teach you to. Yeah.
Plus, because there may be a whistle right next to you that sounds just like yours, and the players are getting confused. So that's what I was taught, to have a different toned whistle, not just the same type of whistle as you already got.
Okay.
You experienced this, right, Lewis?
I don't believe I've lost my whistle. I have ended up on the ground.
I think, wasn't that the Eddie situation?
Yes, you know what? Yeah, there are photos where the whole brawl happens and you can see my whistle on the ground pretty quickly.
Hey, Daniel.
Yeah.
Well,
All right. So it sounds like Robert and David are in concurrence that there will need to be red cards here. For what?
Violent conduct.
Okay.
But I like his thought that this could possibly need termination, this match, depending on how close it is to the end and how violent it is.
Or it might just time out the game. You might not even have to be the bad guy terminating. It might
That's
just time
true.
out.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
But
right.
also-
And if you're,
Oh, go
and
ahead.
if you're within a few, you know, you're within 30 seconds,
Oh, yeah.
time it out yourself. Kind of don't just wait that 30 seconds. Do something slow, you know. Just as players can prolong the game, we can prolong the game if needed, right?
Yeah,
You
you
know,
gotta take lots of notes. That can be done very slowly.
slowly, right?
Oh,
Oh, well, we got to figure
exactly.
out where the drop ball is going to be. Let's mosey on over, you know, whatever it's going to be, right? So, yeah, keeping an eye on your watch.
Yeah, that very sharp thinking. I like that. Using all the tools available to you. And what I also like is I'm not hearing wait for it to time out so you don't have to give the cards.
No, I'd still give them, especially if it's tournament play, you know, or even league play, right? Because that affects the follow. That affects the follow-on game.
Especially violent conduct. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's like in the Women's World Cup. I think it was, well, it was Saturday or Sunday, but one of the referees gave one of the players a red card with only like a minute left game. Because, and they deserved it, but I mean, they didn't not give the red card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think the time on the field should dictate whether you're going to give a caution or a send off.
Courage,
Yeah,
character, consistency.
Urge,
Right.
character, consistency. I got to remember that.
because both those cards have something for follow-on games, and it sets the tone for what you're going to allow later on.
Yeah.
2 weeks from now, you might have the same team that you're repping. Hey, this guy let me get away with this.
Mm-hmm.
I would debate you a little bit on the caution, because often cautions are, you remember, you want to try and get a particular result. If you
Right.
can keep that player doing what they need to do without the yellow card, and you see there's only a minute left in the game, I would opt for that if I think I can get the result I need for the next minute. But red card, I would agree that 100% has to happen, no matter what time it is in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I have a question because in our pregame, I mean, what I've heard, the general thought is that the AR that's in the half of the field where the play is happening is assisting the referee with this type of situation, and then the trailing AR is taking notes and watching. But if both teams are crashing the field, could you mention to your trailing AR that if that were ever the case, that if they're at the halfway line, and they can see that they could kind of, I don't know, they can't take notes as effectively initially, but if they can kind of keep that other team from running on the field, that maybe they want to at least make an attempt at that first. 'Cause I've never heard anybody talk about this type of situation.
I think it's so valuable to have somebody noting who's doing what and identifying people. I had a situation at Pot of Gold, Girls 19.
Yeah.
Where there was a fight that broke out. And I had given the instruction before the match that the near AR was to assist me and the far AR was to record what was happening. Unfortunately, right after it happened, when things were starting to separate a little bit, all of a sudden I hear this man yelling right behind me really loud. And it's my far AR, and he had decided that he would be of more use coming on the field and yelling at everybody. And then when I got together with my ARs after we had separated everybody and we're deciding exactly identifying who was going to get the red cards, we had an inaccurate idea on one of the people. We knew exactly what that person had done. We had all seen it, but my trailing AR hadn't recorded anything. He didn't have any record of anything. He couldn't identify anybody, and unfortunately, I identified the wrong person because of that. They had video, so I saw afterwards they would have identified the wrong person. Fortunately, that person accepted their red card, and I agreed with the tournament to change the person who received the red card after the tournament, after that game was over, so that the inaccurately red carded player was allowed to continue playing.
Kind of makes me wonder if they did something nobody saw and they were guilty, and that's why they accepted the red card. Anyway, that's beside the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. That can be very helpful. And in the vein of running timeout with this one, you could also, you understand you're close to the end of the game, and you can get captains from both teams and say, look, here's what I can do. Here's what I'd like to do. Here's what your options are. And if you all think you can pull this together, we can keep going. Otherwise, we can be done right here. And enlist the captains or enlist the coaches. You have some options there. But I like how we're thinking about the trail AR, having them there, taking notes, and they can take notes as if they get to the coach real quickly and say, hey coach, make sure nobody comes on. Of course, sometimes the coach, you can tell the coach is going to be helpful, trying to pull their players out. So that's another situation you got to read. Yeah, so you can tell your ARs to do whatever you want to tell them to do. There are reasons for the recommended approaches. Yeah, ugly situation here. Ugly situation.
In this scenario, your trailing AR should already be all the way as far up and right next to the coach's technical area. So
Yeah,
if all the defenders are already forward.
yeah. All right. Well, we got one more. Let's jump forward to it. So during an attack, a striker and goalkeeper go for the ball simultaneously. The keeper recklessly throws herself over the ball and into the path of the striker's foot. She misses the ball and is injured. When the coach enters the field with permission, she checks her player and then angrily accuses the referee of not protecting the keeper. She threatens that future injuries will be the referee's fault. The referee knows that the correct restart is an indirect free kick because the keeper played dangerously before she was injured. Now, on this last one, Daniel, I want you to take a moment and then give us your take on how to handle the situation, since we haven't had you do one yet.
Well, that's hard. I'd like to talk to the coach briefly, but I don't know if I can. That way I can explain things ahead of time rather than afterwards. But it depends on the timing and whether the coach, kind of where the coach is next to me or something like that.
Okay. What kind of things would you be saying to the coach?
I tell the coach what I saw. And what I think the player did. And that like my intent and the coach's intent are both to protect the player.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the sense that restart is a way to kind of protect the player too, so that the player doesn't keep doing it.
Okay. So we've all seen this. We've heard the coach say, "Hey, you got to watch out. You got to protect my player. You got to protect my goalkeeper." Thinking of the points we had previously that Phil introduced before we got into the scenarios and that we recapped earlier. What do you think is the most productive with the coach here? Now, I'm opening this. Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
I think first, I mean, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but first I might acknowledge, even though I already know that I saw what happened. I had a better view of what happened than the coach. I might acknowledge his feelings of frustration and say, Coach, I realize you're really frustrated. It's no fun to see one of your players get injured, or, and something like that.
So you're listening, making them feel
Yes.
heard,
Yes.
acknowledging. Okay. I like it.
And then kind of going, this is what I saw, Coach. And, the keeper took a unnecessary risk by throwing herself over the ball recklessly in the path of the striker's foot, and unfortunately put herself in harm's way and got injured.
Mm-hmm.
That's the middle part of what I think I'd say to them. And then the decision, and let's take care of your player. Let's make sure she's okay. And, there's a little other stuff going on here besides just the explanation and the restart. It's the player is injured. So, yeah, not so easy, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of times if the player plays that way, the coach kind of knows. So it may not be the first time the player, was kind of at risk.
Yeah. So you know what I'm curious about here is the goalkeeper's coach is complaining to you. You know the restart is against that coach's team. How are we going to handle that?
Well, that's why I thought you got to calm him down first, maybe acknowledge the feeling. You got to bring that temperature down. I would think that would be a better option for you if you can succeed to bring the temperature down and ease him into and explain what happened as you saw it. And then your call will make more sense. I don't know if he'll accept it any better, but that's why I tried to say how I would handle that in the 3-step process there.
Yeah, so I like how you're not even letting the coach get back to her touch line and then get surprised and enraged all over again when the free kick is against her team. While you've got her next to you, you're handling things, maybe even walking with her toward her technical area so you can drop her off there.
I
once
like
you've
that. I
called
didn't think
her.
of that. I like that.
Okay.
I guess that's the opportunity because the coach has already gone on the field and it's kind of near the referee.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle the coach? That's true, because can't you give I mean, the player is injured though, but in the law book, it says if the coach comes on the field in a confrontational manner, that you can send them off. So this is another issue we haven't talked about yet here. I'm not saying that I would do that. I'm just saying that would be good to discuss before we leave tonight.
Scenario says that the coach had permission to
Oh, sorry. I missed that.
and checks the player first and then goes to the referee.
Okay. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that the behavior is permissible.
I think if you just tried to give the coach punishment for their behavior, it would just be inflammatory and you wouldn't really create a win-win opportunity. But with Robert's approach of acknowledging and showing sympathy for the injured player, I think that creates a situation where you can get a win-win out of it.
Yeah. Definitely, you can get a win-win out of that. And you know, that's a great point to end because that brings us full circle. Brings us right back to the win-win. So you'll notice in these situations, I wasn't really focusing heavily on, oh, well, this is the right way to do it. This is the wrong way to do it. I was focused on what are we thinking about here? How can we move this in a harmonious direction? We know what we need for the game to move forward. And we need to figure out what the players, the coaches, what the spectators need to be able to move the game forward. So focusing on the win-win, we can run through that decision-making process. Any final questions? Yeah, go ahead. You're muted, Robert.
Yeah, just that nightmare game for me when you were my AR. I mean, I would handle that totally different today.
Okay.
I would be much more proactive about coming over to talk to the coach and listening to them and
Make them feel heard.
Yeah, and understanding what they were seeing before it got out of hand like it did.
Okay.
So that would be a totally different situation today.
Okay.
Live
Yeah.
and learn.
Hey, we all have these games we learn from. I always like to say that I feel really bad for the kids that grew up with me refereeing them as they kept aging up because I was making my mistakes big time and I kept the law book in my bag. And when I went and made my mistake big time, I'd go and read my law book and say, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm never making that mistake again. So get out there, get messy, make your mistakes, and we all move forward from them. We'll make some win-wins. It was a scrappy little group tonight. I appreciate everyone having a lot of contribution. I'm going to put a wrap up to this recording soon, but I do have some things I want to say about the national game this week after I finish the recording. So anybody watching the recording for the first time, this is part 2. If you didn't catch that until now, go back and watch part 1, where everything's introduced in more depth, and the review we did at the start this time won't seem so quick. So thanks to the gang here for showing up, volunteering more hours, and dedicating yourself to the advancement of the game. I'm going to end the recording real quick.